Welcome to episode 16 of Riff and Chips. I'm your host, Phil Vernon, and on today's episode, we welcome Paul Phillips, the incredible artist behind True Spilt Milk. Before becoming an artist, Paul played drums in UK mathcore legends Meet Me in St Louis. Since then, his intricate and melancholic style has led him to produce artwork, posters and merch designs for the likes of Mastiff, Urn, 100-Year-Old Man, Conjurer, Lightning Bolt, and even legendary Beach Boys founder Brian Wilson. In 2021, he won the prestigious Art Vinyl Award for his incredible work on Village's record, Fever Dreams. Join us as we discuss Paul's musical career, the highs and lows of being an illustrator, and the infamous chippy item known as a wally. Paul, welcome to Riff and Chips.
Hello, nice to meet you, mate. Thanks for having me on.
No problem. It'll be a pleasure. We start as always by asking how you initially got into kind of heavy music as a youngster. You're wearing a Full of Hell t-shirt now. You're obviously into your heavy music. So where did it start?
Something not very heavy at all, really. I was never really into music when I was a youngster. Like, I remember being 9 years old and hearing music on Top of the Pops and thinking, right, music's not for me. I don't like that. But then one day I heard a song. It's kind of a cheesy song, but it was Black Cat by Janet Jackson. And it had this like electric guitar riff in it. And I'd never really heard electric guitar up until that point because I grew up in the 80s. So everything was super synth. And then all of a sudden, we're cracking into the late 80s, and all of a sudden guitar music was making a bit more of a jump. Like bands like Guns N' Roses were becoming huge stadium bands and stuff. So when I heard Black Cat, I was like transfixed by the sound of the guitar in it. I thought, wow, that's the best sound I've ever heard. Assumed that it was unique to that one song, so was really gutted and was like, man, I'm never going to hear that sound again apart from that song. I have to record that song off the radio. Then I think Guns N' Roses was the next band that I heard that had guitars in, and I was like, oh, there's that sound again. Yeah, I was pretty young at the time, but probably Janet Jackson, that one song, and then Guns N' Roses were my entryway. And then from Guns N' Roses, I just got obsessive about sorts of rock music in general, and just had my parents buying me Iron Maiden tapes, and when Nirvana came out, just fell in love with them. Like, loved anything with a guitar in it, basically. So
when it came along in the kind of early 90s, did you get swept up by nu metal at all in the early days, or did you go down the more kind of alternative route?
I like a lot of stuff. Like, I've never really been massively one for just following one genre. I've always liked a multitude of genres.
Nice.
And I think when nu metal came out, the first band I heard, like I bought. I remember when the first Korn album came out, I bought the cassette tape of it because I saw a picture of them and one of the guys had dreadlocks, and I thought, this band, cool, I'm going to buy that. See what that's like. And I listened to it and I was like, holy shit, this is the heaviest thing I've ever heard. So like that first Korn album was a big thing for me, and I went to go see them, and they were playing tiny toilet venues in London at the time.
Yeah,
it was way before that. Like, when I bought it, the review was actually in Kerrang, and it was a bad review. They totally slated the album.
It was so different to anything around at the time. So what do you compare it to, I guess?
Yeah, they just didn't get it. You could tell from the review that they just didn't get like the vibe. They were sort of expecting it to be a grunge record or something, I think. And it was totally different and really heavy and really neggy and really sort of, disturbing, like the subject matters lyrically and stuff. And I was just like, man, the darker the better, basically. This is it for me. So I think I got into Machine Head shortly after when Burn My Eyes came out, and I was like, holy shit, like this is the stuff, man. Like, and then from that I got like into heavier stuff like Cannibal Corpse and Deicide and stuff, and started going down the death metal route and just basically looking for the hardest, fastest stuff I could find.
Yeah, it's weird how it gets a hold of you, isn't it? You hear that one record that, like you say, Burn My Eyes is a hard record. I don't know if you watch any of the Hardlaw stuff at all, which is Bo and Colin from Harm's Way and Twitching Tongues.
Oh, right.
They have a podcast YouTube channel called Hardlaw where they talk to people from bands similar to this, a bit more pro. And they've done a big bracket recently, finding like the heaviest band in the world. And it was quite good because they were talking about...
I play that game every day.
Yeah. So I think, for, like, spoiler alert for anyone, but it was Crowbar. But they went through all these bands, and they have like Deicide versus Typo Negative, and there was all these things about well, what's hard and what's heavy, and there's that, and there's that quite like defining thing. Whereas, I mean, you could argue that Burn My Eyes falls into both camps.
I think anybody who's into heavy music or has played in bands has probably had this kind of conversation at some point or other. But I definitely think that when you say heavy, like it's quite an umbrella term for anything extremely fast or anything extremely deep lyrically or anything, you could, Sun, fucking not fast at all,
No,
super heavy,
the opposite, yeah.
Don't even have drums,
No.
still super heavy.
Yeah.
I think it's very personal to the individual as to what their tastes dictate as being heavy. So for me, I like real mid-tempo stuff, like not too slow, not crazy fast, but just riffs, sort of anything with a bit of swagger and a lot of low end to it.
Like the groove. And I think that's a big thing with the heavy stuff. Like, especially in the 90s, you had that kind of, I mean, I hate the term, like groove metal, but you had those bands like Pantera. When Sepultura moved out of their more thrashy sort of stuff, you had that kind of era in the kind of early to mid 90s where a lot of bands had that real kind of groove to them, like Helmet, stuff like that. Like,
oh, for sure, Helmet, so much swagger. Like you say, Sepultura, Chaos AD, it was just riffs, man.
So many riffs. What about UK bands? Obviously, I know you mentioned Iron Maiden briefly, but any sort of other, especially around that kind of like early to mid 90s time?
I was like 14 years old at this point. So I wasn't involved in any music scenes, didn't even understand that there were music scenes, didn't have the internet back when I was a kid. So like, if you found stuff out, it's because you walked out your front door and went and found it or stumbled upon it. I wasn't really that aware of many British bands at the time. There was a Scottish band called Baby Chaos that I really liked. But like I found out about them through taping Glastonbury off TV and stuff. They were on a really small stage or something. And Compulsion as well. I really liked the band Compulsion. They were kind of more punky stuff. They were on The Word once, like the same season as Sepultura were on The Word. Yeah. I just thought it was awesome. And there were some underground sort of British bands that I just found randomly. DBH were one. Yeah. They were really good. Don't know whatever happened to them, man. Like, I got one record and thought it was great. And then, I don't know, I wasn't very good at keeping up with bands when I was that age. Like now I'm obsessive about it. But yeah, British bands wise, it wasn't until sort of started playing out and doing the circuit myself and then finding out about sort of the local scene bands and stuff, bands like Hondo McLean, Devil Soldier Soul and stuff like that. But that was, that was like 10 years later. So
yeah, for sure. Yeah. Also a great era though. Just going back to that Word episode, for anyone that's not seen it, and obviously a lot of our younger listeners might not be aware of The Word. So The Word was a show that was on Channel 4. It was presented by, it was like Mark Lamar and
Terry Christian, Danny Bear.
Yeah, Danny Bear. And it was like a late night sort of chat show, but they had bands on, and there's so many famous sets from that. There was like L7 played a really famous set, didn't they?
Yeah.
Like one of them like got naked, and Sepultura played, and they had this ridiculous bit at the start where they had these metal fans like locked in a cage all the way through the set, and then they like opened the gates of the cage and they all come like running through to the front. And Sepultura, I think they're playing. Is it Refuse Resist? I've got a feeling.
It was Refuse Resist.
Yeah, and it's all on YouTube. Like go and check it out. A bit later, obviously, you had TGI Friday. Obviously, you had Slipknot on TGI Friday that time. And they had Napalm Death on once as well, didn't they? There was
At that time when those came out, like that was your only real exposure to anything alternative. That one show, like nothing else, with the exception of maybe Beavis and Butthead or something.
Exactly. I remember seeing like on Top of the Pops. So it must have been what, maybe 96 probably. The I Disappear Metallica video of them obviously playing on top of the big like Mesa rock things in Arizona or whatever. And obviously it was for the Mission Impossible film or whatever. That was probably one of the very early things that I saw like on kind of mainstream TV that wasn't just kind of pop music.
I come from not a wealthy family. So, we had like one black and white TV that relied on a coat hanger in it to get the signal. So, stuff like Headbangers Ball and MTV was all on like cable and stuff.
Yeah, of course. Yeah,
we can afford that. So like when the Word came on, like I was just like wicked.
Before you started playing in bands yourself, did you get to like any shows? I know you said you weren't really aware of local scenes when you were 14, but what sort of age did you start kind of getting down to shows?
I actually started going to sort of shows in London before anything else. I went to see Compulsion play at the Dublin Castle, I think, and that was my first proper show. And then shortly afterwards, I saw both Garbage and Slayer about 2 weeks apart from each other at Brixton Academy. So I think
Okay,
that was
nice.
like the first 3 shows I went to, which it was mad. And the funny thing was like the Garbage show was like way more raucous than the Slayer show.
Yeah.
there was more moshing and stuff. It was mental. But both were great shows, and like I was hooked from that point. I was like, holy shit, I need to do this for a living.
Yeah.
So that was me, man.
Yeah. And talking to doing it for a living, that kind of leads us in. So for people that aren't aware, obviously a lot of people know you nowadays for your art, which obviously we'll get onto talking to. So obviously in the mid-2000s, you played drums in a math rock band called Meet Me in St. Louis. So tell us about that. How did that come about? How was that kind of whole experience?
That was the result of probably about 10 years of trying to start bands up from the age of about 16. It's such a learning process, especially back then when there was no real internet access. It was a case of like, I found a rehearsal studio, I had to walk there. I had to like look at the boards and find other musicians and stuff. And after a long period of playing in many, many terrible bands and bands that only rehearsed but never played shows and, all that kind of stuff, I got my shit together basically and managed to find 4 like-minded individuals from the local scene. Actually, Lewis, our bassist, he was from further afield. He just answered an ad. And we all became real tight buddies and really enjoyed pushing the boundaries of music together. Yeah, just hit the ground running, man. Put a demo out online, and there was a band called Jerris. I don't know if you remember them.
Yeah. You still love that band.
Awesome album called Need to Change the Mapmaker.
Yeah.
It's this incredible record. But they asked us on the basis of that one demo if we wanted to support them in Folkestone, and we did that. And then they were like, do you want to come on tour with us to Eastern Europe? So our first tour was after doing 2 or 3 shows, and it was abroad, and so we were all just like, holy shit. And they were signed to Big Scary Monsters at the time, so Kev from BSM came out on the tour with us, and Ross, who's in Lonely the Brave, was in a band called Second Smile at the time, and they came out as well. So there's the 3 bands and Kev and a few other people. We just had an amazing tour. It was really hectic and fun, and we were all young and just loving sleeping on floors and stuff. We signed to BSM, they put our record out, and we just toured relentlessly. But it was kind of stupid. A lot of it was my fault, but we kind of burnt out because I was just pushing us too hard. I'm kind of an all or nothing guy. So
yeah.
I was pushing the guys a bit too hard, and eventually, after a period of a few years, we disbanded after some bad luck events, which every band gets. And I'm sure anyone in a band is like, "Oh yeah, the old bad luck," broken down vans, gear being stolen, all that shit.
Yeah.
So it was just just sort of Toby had left the band by that point because he wanted to do something else musically, and that was our singer. And then I sort of decided I wanted to give it up to pursue other things, and started the old illustration journey.
So let me get this right, because you did a couple of EPs that had, a demo / EPs that had like quite Red Sparrows-esque long titles, if I remember right.
Yeah, we were very pretentious at that age.
It
was a weird pocket that time. Like loads of bands were doing it, and we weren't any different. We were just like, I personally quite liked it at the time. I look back now and I'm like, not so much. But like at the time, I was just like, yeah, this is cool. I like being able to take a quote from a movie and just use that as a song title. Because basically, when we wrote songs, we didn't know what the fuck they meant lyrically, because Toby would be off doing that on his own. So we would just name them in the meantime.
And then the album was Variations in Swing, wasn't it? And that came out in 2007.
Yeah, that's right. Right.
Is that available on Spotify? I know it's on Bandcamp and stuff still, isn't it? Is that available to stream for people to check it out if they want to?
Yeah. It's all on the usual places where you normally find albums. It was recorded by Alex Newport, who used to play in Fudge Tunnel, another great British band, and he recorded a lot of At the Drive-In's early stuff, and The Locust as well. And he was a lovely guy. A bit of a hero moment for me, because like I obsessed over Fudge Tunnel when I was younger. We emailed him out of the blue, and he got back to us and was like, yeah man, these demos are awesome. So we had to fly him over from LA. He stayed at my house. I was living with my mum at the time, and like I slept on the couch so that he could have my room. It's just really surreal, just sort of coming home every night from recording and just sort of drinking a bottle of wine with Alex Newport.
Yeah.
It was crazy, man. Like, but he's a lovely guy, and he did a great job. And we weren't easy people to work with, I don't think. Yeah, our music was pretty technical and out there, so it wasn't an easy thing to record. But he was a very patient man.
And then you actually reunited in 2016 for a small run of shows that included playing at Arctangent, which, let's be honest, it couldn't be a better suited place for you guys. It's basically the home of math rock. So how was that to come back and do that kind of, what was it, about 7 or 8 years after the fact?
Yeah, about that. It was great because like when we originally split up, we split up out of exasperation, and there was no final farewell or anything like that. We just kind of imploded. So to be asked like 8 years later, we'd been asked a few times before from various promoters, but the time was never right, because 3 of us, myself, Ollie and Lewis, were in a band called X's for a while with Jody, who's in Sex Swing, and who played in Earth for a record. We were kind of busy with that, and Toby was off busy doing his solo stuff, so the time was never right. But then come the 8-year later period, Russell Mark, who's a lovely gentleman, put it all together. We did a little tour and headlined one of the stages at Arctangent, and it was just like amazing. It was just the perfect kind of closure that we never got way back when. So yeah, it was great. It was a brilliant experience, man. Arctangent's a fantastic festival. They're super chill to work with, and the crowds are amazing. So
it's been mentioned on pretty much every episode of this that it's no stranger that I love it. It's my favorite festival.
Yeah,
we're getting towards that time of year now where I start getting excited, especially since they put the Clash Finders out early this year. It's been like fully prepared and planning it out in full. So yeah, really looking forward to August. Anyone walking around Arctangent will probably see your artwork left, right, and centre on various t-shirts, posters. So let's get into that side of things. You said that when Meet Me in St. Louis kind of initially imploded and you decided you wanted to do something different, that's where you kind of got into it. So is that where it all kind of started, or has there always been that sort of like interest in illustration?
Definitely always an interest. I started off illustrating when I was a kid. It's like I was drawn to it as a child. Obviously was terrible at it because I was a child. So gave it up when I got to school. Decided I wanted to do something a bit cooler, and I started listening to, rock music at that point. So had been seduced to that side of things creatively. And I don't know why I gave up drawing. I guess I didn't need to. I could have done both. But I just thought, right, no, music's my thing now, stupidly, narrow-mindedly, it just went off in that direction. But I think I've always been really comfortable with my own company, and I think it really suits me as an individual. I struggle with crowds and anxiety and stuff. So being in a band, as much as I loved it and needed to get it out of my system, I did struggle while I was in a band. Like playing shows and doing tours were really hard. I loved rehearsals and I loved recording, but when it came to touring, the ups and downs of it were extreme for me. Super low lows, super high highs. I would come back from shows and my adrenaline would be going mental, and I wouldn't get sleep, and I'd have to go to work the next day and stuff like that. I'm just that kind of person, When I left St. Louis and decided to go to uni, I instantly realised that that's probably what I should have been doing all along. But I'm glad that I did the music thing, because if I hadn't gone down that route and, been involved in scenes, then I would have never got to this point with the artwork, because it's a culmination of my 2 big passions, music and art.
Yes.
It all seems really obvious now in hindsight, but, when you're finding your path through life, it's not quite as easy. You're just like, what can I do that will make money so I don't starve? So, yeah, not that I make a lot of money, but...
Just yesterday, there's obviously been a trend online of kind of couples like painting portraits of each other and then kind of showing them. Me or my wife are particularly arty at all, but she really wanted to do it, and I was like, yeah, I'm up for it. Like, what else is there to do on a bank holiday afternoon? It was raining, so we got some paints and we did it, and obviously we had a laugh and we turned it around and we were laughing because they were both terrible. Oh, that's quite fun. And Meg was like, yeah, it's nice, isn't it? She's like, did you think of anything else for that hour apart from what you were doing? And I was like, no, I didn't at all. She's like, and I think that's the whole idea behind it. You just concentrate, you get lost in this little world, and you're concentrating so much on what you're doing that literally I didn't think about anything else. So I can see how can be quite comforting, I guess, for someone who might be anxious about things that are going on around them. And
it's a double-edged sword, to be honest. There's definitely that aspect of it. It can be pure escapism. Sometimes if I'm going through a hard time, I do just instinctively throw myself into my work. The flip side is it's also quite isolating and you don't feel like that all the time. Sometimes you feel, especially with my work, because like it's so detailed and intricate, I can spend huge portions of time just doing one repetitive task. Be that line
Yeah.
for like 6 hours. So like,
Yeah.
at that point, you don't really need to concentrate on what you're doing anymore.
No.
So, at that point, my mind can actually go into overdrive. I get stuck in my own head a little bit and overthink things and stuff that goes on in the world. I can go down a rabbit hole mentally without even realizing it.
Yeah.
I can spend a whole day thinking about horrible shit sometimes, and at the end of the day, I feel terrible. And I'm like, well, I feel so bad. And I'm like, well, you just been thinking about war all day, Paul. So that's why you feel shit.
Yeah. It's gonna have that effect,
yeah. So you got to be careful, man. You've got to be really aware and really strict with yourself about your habits and the way you live your life. It would be very easy as an illustrator to go down a negative rabbit hole because I've got all this free time and this freedom to myself. Well, I don't have free time, but I have the freedom of, being able to choose my hours and live my life how I live it pretty much, which is something I've always wanted. And it's the one thing that keeps me sane in this world, that level of freedom.
Yeah.
Sometimes, like, I think that wouldn't be for everyone, I think some people, they're not good at being strict with themselves. They would struggle in this profession,
Yeah.
It takes quite a lot of discipline.
When you were first starting out, were there any kind of particular influences, either for your style or just in terms of things like standout covers, like you say in the 80s, 90s when you started buying records? Were there any kind of album art and you were like, whoa, that's really fucking cool?
Oh, definitely. Some obvious ones. I'm pretty shit at remembering artists' names, so I apologise to any artists whose work I reference but don't know them. Chaos City, Iron Maiden records, early Sepultura, Bolt Thrower, Cannibal Corpse records, all that kind of stuff, man. I was just like, all this stuff looks so cool. So I started, when I was very young, I would like try and draw Eddie from the Iron Maiden covers and stuff like that.
Nice.
I don't know, man. Like, I just get off on so much. Like, I'm really I'm really overstimulated, as a person, and I'm constantly shoving something in my face, be it music or film or whatever. I just can't absorb it quick enough. Yeah, I guess my umbrella of influence is pretty wide. But in terms of when I was sort of starting to take this seriously as a career and actually make that kind of artwork myself, people like Derek Hess, who did a lot of early Converge stuff.
Yeah.
Fantastic eyes, got a real sort of scrappy style. I was really seduced by it when I first saw his work. My work's kind of the opposite. It's really detailed and precise.
Yeah.
But I think a lot of the time when it comes to art, especially for me, it's just about whether it makes you feel something when you look at it. I know it sounds kind of cliched, but it's true.
Yeah.
Well,
100%.
it is for me. Probably not for everybody because everybody's brains are different. I was chatting to my wife. She doesn't get particularly emotional when she looks at art. Like, she does a little bit, but not like I do, I'll be consumed by an emotion when I look at certain things. Other things I'll look at and I'll feel nothing and I'll know that's not for me.
Yeah.
And a lot of poster artists, music poster artists like Kevin Tong is a brilliant artist. He's done a lot of stuff for the Pixies and Mudhoney and some really cool bands. And I love his style. I'm massively influenced by his use of colour. When I was going through uni and learning how to do all this, Dan Mumford was a big influence. He did the first Gallows record. And he's done a lot of cool stuff since. He's kind of branched out more into movie posters.
There's a lot like a cool video game sort of stuff now, does he?
Video
game stuff, yeah.
Totally. And, he's got this really cool, unique style. Again, brilliant use of color palettes. I really, vibe off the neon colors.
Yeah.
Oh, Richie Beckett.
Yeah.
We've got a lot of the same friends. So I feel like I've probably met him at some point, but really like his artwork.
Yeah.
Quite influenced by his sort of elegance in the way he draws.
Yeah, and he has a good level of detail and stuff as well, doesn't he? Especially
he does. I am a sucker for detail, hence why my stuff's so detailed. I just feel that sort of, regardless of my own stuff's concerned, the more detail I put in, the more depth to the image I can attain. The more depth, the happier I seem to be when I finished a piece. So that's always what I'm kind of aiming for.
Yeah. Other artists I can think of with like levels of detail for yourself. I mean, Aaron Hawkey, obviously you're super detailed, defined lines and things. Yeah.
The dude has got a knack for typography that blows my mind, man. Like
that HopeCon stuff and things. So it's so good. It's perfect.
I've got a sick ISIS Aaron Hawkey print up in my hallway, and it's impeccable. Yeah, he's a big influence on me as well, as is somebody called Nico Delort. Check out their stuff. They only draw in black and white, and I think it's using scratch boards as opposed to the way I do everything, which is digital. But my God, the contrast in the pieces is something that I'm always trying to achieve. Doesn't really do music stuff, but mostly film posters and that. Stylistically, it's mind-blowing.
What was the first release that you did art for then? Because I remember the first one that I saw, which I think was relatively early days, but I don't think was your first, was the No Moon artwork for Body Hound.
Oh, yeah.
So I think that's the first one of yours that I remember seeing with the floating kind of pyramid things.
Yeah. Friends of mine, my old band, did a tour with Rolo Tomasi when the guys from Body Hound were in Rolo Tomasi, so knew them pretty well, and they were just super lovely fellas to work with. Got a lot of love for those guys. The first thing I did was I did the reissue of the Mimi St. Louis album. I was just sort of in the middle of my degree at that point, really sort of just still figuring out how to do what I wanted to do and achieve what I wanted to achieve. And, when I look at that cover now, I'm still really happy with it, weirdly, but the style is very different to the way I draw now. And I'm, I do it totally different if I had the chance now. But I'm really proud of that record and what we achieved with it. So it's just a nice piece to have. I mean, that was over 10 years ago now. So it's a while ago, man.
So I've got a list here, obviously. I mean, you'll be aware, obviously, this by no means a completive list. But in terms of release artworks, you've done bands like the likes of Acid Throne, Shower of Teeth, Lonely the Brave, 2 most recent Mastiff albums, which, again, I think, Leave Me the Ashes of the Earth, that artwork with the urn, I think still to this day is probably one of my favourites of yours. The detail on that is insane. The fact that it's just this quite stark, you can almost just imagine it, just this urn sat in this dark room with a very small kind of like light source just kind of glancing across it, and the mood's unreal. Now, I know when I chatted to James, he was saying that he said for both the Masters records, he basically was like, they were like, here's a title and here's a few demos or whatever, and you kind of had this open book to kind of go away and draw how it made you feel, I guess. And obviously they said they were very impressed straight off the bat. I mean, I'm guessing not all briefs are as exciting as that.
No, some briefs are very specific. I'm cool with that if I'm into the concept. It can be just as fun project to working to somebody else's ideas, because my ideas are my ideas, and they're very idiosyncratic to me, which is why my artwork has kind of a definitive look, I guess. But yeah, so, I'm cool to work to either. I like to be as flexible as I can so the clients have the easiest experience possible, because some designers, man, I've worked with other designers in the past, and there's a lot of people in the music industry that are just very annoyed at life and they're quite irritable. So I try to make the experience as positive as possible. For the most part, people are cool, and Mastiff are one of the best clients because of those open briefs. They just know I know what they're doing. I get the music, I get the vibe. It's not difficult. No. Mastiff are one of those bands where it's just like, it's obvious what they're doing from the get-go, and it's a marvelous thing that they're doing. I was super psyched when they very first got in touch with me, because I'd literally found out about them about a year before. I think I just stumbled onto Plague, I think. I was just like, wow, that sounds really heavy. That sounds amazing. Great guitar tone. The vocals sound mean as fuck. Totally my cup of tea. And then, when I got an email from them saying, would you like to do some artwork? I was just like, yeah, man, this is a sick fit. I'd love to do more sort of detailed stuff, because up until that point, I've been mostly doing artwork for a promotions company in Brighton called 1 Inch Badge. They were a great company to work for, and they gave me a lot of opportunities. But when I left there and finally started doing album covers full time, I could spend more time and really get my teeth into concepts with bands like Mastiff, who've got a heavy sound but a deep emotional core to it.
Yeah.
As an illustrator and as a designer, you've got to try your hardest to represent the core meanings of the record in your illustration. Artists, death metal album, I'm going to do a, cityscape with a couple of skulls and shit. And then it's just like, obviously that looks very death metal, but like, does it have anything to do with what's going on in the album? I always want, for me, it's the most important thing is that the artwork conveys the message of the album. And with that, Leave Me the Ashes of the Earth record, the urn that's on the front of it is actually based on a real urn, which was owned by a French aristocratic family in like the 1600s, and they were infamous for withholding money and letting the people of the town starve. So it just felt very appropriate for the themes on the album, sort of a lot of disillusionment with the government and the way the country is run and stuff like that.
The Fever Dream artwork that you did for the Villagers won the Best Art Vinyl Award a couple of years back. So that must have been quite a nice moment for, after you've been working in the industry for a while, to kind of get that recognition from peers in, what's quite a prestigious award in terms of like music artwork.
Yeah. I mean, that was a great experience. One of those things, like I didn't expect it. I had no idea that I'd even been nominated for it. Just got an email saying, "Oh, by the way, you're in the running for this." And it's like, "Oh, that's pretty cool." Do you want to come to this, award show in London at this swanky hotel? And I was like, "Yeah, man, that'd be cool." Went along with my wife, and then they called out my name when they were announcing the winner, and I was like,
"What the fuck?"
Yeah, I was like, "Man, I should have dressed better, man." Shit. So, and then they were expecting a speech and stuff, and I was just like, "Man, I'm hammered." So I've just been, because I had such bad social anxiety at the time that I just needed to get shit faced before I spoke to anybody outside my house. It was crazy. Amazing feel good moment. And off the back of it, it's been great for pushing my brand and what I do. And the guys from the Villagers camp have been also, like Mastiff, have been incredibly patient and understanding clients and have been nothing but respectful. And it's just a pleasure to work with people like those bands, man. It makes the whole process just really fun, and you can concentrate on the artwork. When a band's like, "Oh, we need this," it's just like, I want people to work with me because they dig what I do and they want to work with me. I want it to be a collaborative thing. If they're just shopping around for whoever's cheapest because they need some artwork, I'm not your guy.
Yeah.
So, yeah, great to work with such involved bands that care about the concepts and care about the art. It's not just we need something to stick on the front cover. It's, we want something that can visually represent the music.
So one of my favorite things that you incorporate into a lot of pieces, I don't know if you do this knowingly, I wouldn't say it's necessarily a trademark because obviously your level of detail is a trademark. But
you found the invisible penises.
That's what I was going to bring up. Yeah. Only can be seen under a UV light. Yeah.
Sneak one into every cover.
I'm definitely going to be looking now. I'll get my magnifying glass out. Scowling the front cover of The Precipice, looking for that penis.
Is there that? The Precipice.
The Precipice, yeah. In a lot of your pieces, you kind of have that, sometimes it's single, sometimes it's multiple, but that kind of glow or light source. So the They Explode cover that you've done quite recently is a good example, kind of coming out of the window. The Colonel Jafar album, which was the kind of like neon, tesseract kind of pyramid-y type shape or whatever. There's actually another great example of that in some upcoming cover art that that I know about, that I've been lucky enough to see, which unfortunately we can't really talk about at the moment. It's all very hush-hush. We don't want to give anything away, but it kind of looks like some sort of dwelling where maybe a shoddy hermit, maybe an Easter egg, maybe not. Do you feel that that's a trademark, something that, I'm not saying you, because I know you wouldn't shoehorn it in for the sake of shoehorn it into the piece, but do you like the opportunity to give that beam of light or that glow on? Because obviously a lot of your pieces are generally can be quite dark.
Yeah, I like to think that I'm not a particularly dark artist. I'm more sort of a melancholic, slightly surreal artist. You know, It's because one of my biggest influences is a photographer called Gregory Crewdson.
Right, okay.
Yeah, this guy, like, he thinks of like a concept and he makes a set like you would have a film set.
Right, okay.
And he sets it all up like that. And his images cost thousands of pounds, to create just like a single photograph, but it will be like a still from a film.
Right, okay.
He's always got that kind of similar kind of melancholic mood that I have inherent in my work. I'm really drawn to that subconscious, and I'm also very much, because I watch a lot of movies, I'm a real cinephile. Like, I'm really, really into mise en scene and how shadow works and how light works in images. And I think the better grasp you have on light and how it falls, the better illustrator you're going to be, and the more realistic your images are going to be, if you're trying to achieve that kind of thing, obviously.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to check that out, because I follow a lot of accounts on Instagram and on Twitter, X, whatever you want to call it nowadays, that are very much like kind of cinematography accounts that kind of show those, maybe not necessarily shots from the films or stills from films that have that particular kind of like amazing mood look about them. They're nearly always from Alien, because it's fucking amazing and probably the perfect example of it. I mean, you've done a great...
It's the perfect movie.
An Alien post. Yeah, well, it is the perfect movie, because you've recently done an art print for Alien, right? With the...
Yeah,
I'm
kind of
stuff, yeah.
kind of branching out into movie posters. Like, I love doing music and working with bands, but as I said before, I'm also a massive cinephile. So being able to get my foot in the door of the movie poster industry has been something I've always wanted to do. And this year finally managed to find a way in. Because, when you're starting out as a designer, you want to work with these people, you want to achieve these things that the artists you love and respect have achieved, and you're just like, right, I can see myself doing that if I put enough work in. And I finally got to work with Hero Complex Gallery this year for the first time after having followed their work for over 10 years. So it's and they're lovely people and crazy easy to work with, and can't do enough for me. And honestly, man, it's like a dream come true in some respects.
Right, Paul, I think that's enough of the pleasantries. Are you ready to get down to some hardcore chippy chat?
Let's do it. I love those stuff.
They're just a bit of daft fun, aren't they?
They're perfect.
Yeah. So what local chippy are you taking me to?
My one's actually already been on the show.
Oh.
Carl from Earthtone 9 mentioned Bankers.
Yeah.
Which is actually about a 5-minute walk from my digs. So that these days is my chippy of choice. And weirdly, Brighton being a seaside town, it's like the only good one. There must be like 80 different chippies in Brighton, and I've tried a lot of them, and they're almost all terrible.
Well, that's good for Bankers. They've been the first double pick on the show, and we've had people from in the same band who live 5 minutes around the corner from each other. We nearly had it with the Palm Reader episode. I mean, they ended up picking two separate ones, but basically Josh wanted to go to Andy's, but Andy lived closer to it, so he was a bit pissed off in the end when Andy ended up choosing it, I think. But yeah, Bankers is the first official double pick, so congratulations to Bankers.
I think Carl said it was like a family-owned thing. There is a second Bankers that's about a 10-minute walk away, so I
noticed this when I was finding a picture to post on the grid,
I kind of always assumed it was like a chain or something, but he might be right. But the one thing I do know is that their chips have like that nice chip shop chip flavor. One of the things that most of the chippies in Brighton struggle with is getting that flavor. It all tastes deep fried as fuck, but has no real chip flavor, no potato flavor. It's hot and it's crunchy. Hot crunchy nothingness is what you get. So Bankers really crushed that old school chip flavor,
using that correct combination of potatoes and oil, whatever it might be.
I guess so. Yeah, there must be like a secret to it, because so many seem to get it wrong. But Bankers really crush it in that department.
And chip wise, so what size portion do you get when you go in there?
I'm not a big eater. I don't eat a huge amount. So my wife and I tend to split a large cod and chips between the two of us.
Okay.
If I'm on my own, I'll get a small chips and a sausage and some mushy peas. But if if I'm with my wife, then we'll get one big large cod and chips and we'll share it. Well, I'll have half the cod, she'll have the other half, and same with the chips because neither of us eat huge amounts. And
yeah. Do you get mushy peas when you get that as well?
You know what? I love mushy peas, and as much as I love Bankers, I gotta say their mushy peas aren't great. They're a little bit tasteless, but I mean, I haven't found anywhere else with any better mushy peas. I noticed you guys were talking the other day about having a bit of mint in with your mushy peas.
Yeah.
Totally down for that. I'm going to start mixing mint in with my mushy peas when I buy it from Bankers, I think, because I love that. I love the freshness of mint and things. I like mint in a lot of food, actually.
Salt and vinegar? You want plenty of salt and vinegar on your chips?
Yeah, always lots of salt and vinegar. And then I tend to use a bit of ketchup. My wife doesn't like ketchup, so she'll rock the tartar sauce.
Okay.
When I was a kid, I was a fussy eater. So I wouldn't have vinegar when I was a kid, but I would have a bit of salt. But as I've got older, I've accepted more flavors. But now I dig the vinegar. But something my wife does is she's got vinegar at home and she'll add extra vinegar when she gets home. Because they don't always, it's the luck of the draw, isn't it? Whoever's on working. Like I went in there one day and there was this lady in there and she put barely anything on. I went in there another day and, the lady was in there drowned it. So, it's luck, I think, unless you're the type of person that likes to micromanage the person making your chips. And I'm not about to be that guy. So
you have to question maybe a chippy that already has fish in the counter, but it's like the people that like try and pick the one that they want. It's like, oh, can I have like that one or whatever? It's just that same sort of person, isn't it?
Yeah.
Cans of pop. Do you get a can of pop when you go to the chippy?
Oh, before you talk about the pop.
Oh, yeah.
My wife also gets a pickled onion with hers and a wally.
A wally? What's a wally?
A wally. Now, I wondered if you'd know what that was.
No.
Where she's from Essex, and where they're around those parts, they call a gherkin, the pickled gherkin, they call that a wally.
Oh, right, okay.
Yeah. When I was listening to the podcast the other day, I was super interested to hear about the spice mix that you can only get in Hull.
Yeah.
That sounds amazing. They need to bring that down here. But yeah, can of pop. I don't go for a can of pop. I wait until I get home and I drink wine with my fish and chips.
Oh, another one, because Josh from Palmbury had a prosecco with his fish and chips. So.
Did he now? Yeah. I'm a rouge guy, so I'll have a couple of large reds with my fish and chips.
Any particular red go well with the fish, like a Merlot or a?
I'm a big fan of Riocas.
Okay.
Unfortunately, I get because I'm old, I get mad acid reflux, so I have to be careful what wines I drink, because otherwise they make me feel sick. But yeah, with fish and chip tea, I like it's a special occasion. We had one this weekend actually, but it's a special occasion, so I like to stick a decent. I think James was saying this. He likes it when he eats it. He likes it to be an occasion, and I think I'm very much the same. I need everything in its place. I need all my sauces in my drink. I need the film paused, ready to go.
Yeah.
That's how I eat.
How often do you treat yourself to that special occasion?
Pretty regularly. I'm a strong believer in special occasions. So, So, I just, any excuse really.
Yeah. I had a special occasion today.
Oh, did you? Nice. It's just suddenly sounding kind of wrong. Like I had a special occasion.
Yeah.
No, I just we had one this weekend just gone. And it was great. It's probably about once a month, I reckon.
Yeah.
We eat healthy during the week, and we tries to be good during the week. But then the weekends, man, it's a free for all. So we get the takeaways and we go out for meals.
Do you get anything to eat while you're waiting for your fish at Bankers? I mean, like a wally's a perfect thing to get.
I guess it is. I don't like wallies personally.
Okay.
I don't mind gherkins cut up in a burger, but I would never just eat a phallic gherkin like my wife does, because it's too much. Like for me, my taste buds recoil in horror. But yeah, no, I'm as I said earlier, I don't eat big portions when I eat. I think I did when I was younger, but as you get older, it becomes harder and harder to consume all the bad things you consume when you're younger. So yeah, I tend to just stick with as small a portion as possible. And yeah, sorry, lost my way again. Just thinking about wallies.
Just thinking about, just can't get Wally's out your mind.
I know.
Now we come to the final section of the show where you get the opportunity to push anything that you've got to push. So as a regular listener, as I know you are, you'll know this section's called... Now, obviously for yourself, I guess things like album artworks, we've already hinted to one that I know of that's not been released yet, so you can't really talk about it. But, you know, what have you got out there, or that is out there in the world, or that has been announced that people can look forward to or maybe check out?
Today, Villagers announced a book which is a culmination of like 10 years or so of Connor from Villagers lyrics and artwork, scribblings, thought processes, all sorts of cool stuff presented in a really neat way. That's coming out in Faber and Faber. He very kindly asked me to do the cover artwork. And I believe some of my artwork from the previous records is in the book as well.
Nice.
So that will be coming out and you'll be able to buy that. And I think there's a version that has like nice UV spot varnish aspects to it, which is a first for me and something I've always wanted to do. Most people don't have the budget for it, which one of the benefits of working with bigger name bands is you tend to get a bit more of a free rein artistically when it comes to stuff that's beyond the illustration process, you know, more to do with the printing process and the production, which, you know, I'm always trying to push for that with projects like, what can I do that I haven't done before, you know?
Yeah, for sure, yeah.
That's coming out. I'm doing something cool for ATG, which is all I'll say about that at the moment. I've got a couple of cool merch designs which I'm gonna which will be announced at some point in the next few months. Well, I'd like to plug more than my own stuff though. I'd like to plug some bands, smaller bands. There's a band called Row of Ashes that I've worked with and done some artwork for. Yep. They're a fantastic band. Their album Bleaching Heat is it's so gnarly, and they're excellent. So please go and check out Row of Ashes. And also a band called Tendrils, who do some kind of like mathcore stuff. I've done some stuff for them recently, which will emerge soonish. And they've got a mini album, an album coming out. And it's raucous, man. I'm really stoked for people to hear those two bands. And you know, like all the bands that I work with, really, you know, like they're all working people struggling to make a living and do music. I come from that background and I know how hard it is. So I like to push and promote the bands I work with as hard as possible, because you need all the help you can get when you're doing that with your life. And if I can help in some way, then I will. Yeah, go to my website and go to my merch page and check out all the bands I've done t-shirts for. That's what people have to do.
Yeah. I've got quite a few in my drawer for sure.
Oh, nice.
So those movie posters that we were talking about, so there's like the Close Encounters one, the Blade Runner one.
Oh, yeah,
and the Alien one. Are they available to buy anywhere? Because I know there'll be plenty of people interested in those.
Yeah, go to herocomplexgallery.com.
Okay.
If you want movie poster stuff that I've done, that's where you can get it. And if you want personal art, or like I do my own sort of little clothing brand, you can get that from my website, which is www.truespiltmilkdesigns.com. There's a store section in there. So if you want to buy stuff that isn't band related and or isn't movie related, but it's just specifically my artwork, you can do it from there.
Perfect. I think that's covered everything.
Cool.
Paul, it's been an absolute pleasure speaking to you. Nice to meet you finally.
You too, mate. You too. It's been lovely.
Hopefully I'll see you floating around at Art Tangent. I look forward to seeing
I'll be there.
What it is that you've been doing special for that. And yeah, I'll catch up with you soon.
Nice one, mate. Take it easy.
Cheers, mate. Take care. That was Paul Phillips, aka True Spilt Milk. He took us to Bankers in Brighton for our first double pick of the series. Big up and congratulations to Bankers. He shared a large cod and chips with his wife with lots of salt and vinegar. He's a fan of mushy peas, but often sticks with ketchup. He won't order anything while he waits, but he will take a wally home for his wife. He'll wash it down with a few large rioccas in front of a film on the telly. As always, I want to see your chippy teas too, so don't forget to tag us in any pics or let us know your favourite local chippy on socials using @RiffandChips. Thanks to Rob Collier for providing the dive bomb, Edgar Gibbs for the screams, and Ryan Westwood for the artwork. See you in a week's time for our next episode.